Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Kingdom Hearts 0.2 Birth by Sleep, a fragmentary passage playthrough. Aqua's got a wee bit lost, but she's ended up in the Dwarf Woodlands, hidden within the Dark World, and oh look, there's Ven asleep. Except he's not there. Poor Aqua.
Ven, what did you come here to tell me? I know I promised to wake you up. I'm sorry. But I have to find a way home before I can help you. I just want you to know that it's been you that keeps my heart strong, keeps the dark away. It's a mirror. What?
So yes, the Dwarf Woodlands in here it's a bit weird, because it's all to do with the mirror and mirrors and all sorts of crazy stuff.
What just happened? Those mirrors. Maybe they're a clue.
So we're in the world within, as it is called, the world within the mirror. So the way that this whole bit occurs is that we explore the mirrors, complete the challenge within, and then we just mosey on through. This is kind of the point where I think most people would probably recommend just saving as much as you can, because there is a rather challenging fight that will come towards the end of the world within, and there's a particular objective which is to use the pirouette on the final boss. So basically you need to get the finish command off on the your Spellweaver command style in order to get that. When I actually played through 0.2 the first time around, that was the point where I ended up screwing over my attempts, or any attempts, to get the Don't Die trophy. Because, rather infuriatingly, I was just like, no, I want to get this objective. And so, since there's no way to, you know, restart a boss fight, I mean, rightfully so, because, I mean, why? The only real thing that helps, in terms of anything, really, is for people like me who are recording video games for the internet. Why else would you restart a boss battle? You just wouldn't do it. Unless, you know, you died. So what I ended up doing was I kept failing to get the pirouette off, and so I was just like, right, well, I'll die and then I'll go back in and I will get this pirouette done if it kills me. Unfortunately, it killed me numerous times trying to get that pirouette off, and in the end I just decided to continue, and then it was only once I got to the end of 0.2 that I then was just like, oh, there was a trophy which was don't die, and so I was rather annoyed then at that point, because that was, I think, when I played it, the only place where I actually died. And so, considering I played it on standard, that kind of makes sense, but obviously, throughout Proud Mode, I was, I suppose, concerned that I would come up against a point where I would die, and I was a bit annoyed at the prospect of that, I suppose. But in the end, there's not much that can be done about what ended up occurring. I'm still without that trophy, but I got goddamn freaking close, and on Proud Mode to boot, so that makes me quite happy. This particular mirror is quite clever, is because you can see the chest that is the correct chest before you go in. You've got to make sure you double check, because otherwise you could end up opening up a whole bunch of craziness. And yeah, once you get the correct one, all of the other ones disappear. And that's basically just that one. There's a few sort of varying types of challenges. There's sort of kill the enemies in the room, get the correct chest. There's figure out the mystery of this corridor. This is the place where most people would recommend getting the skate down on a Blizzaga trail thing, because you've got a massive long corridor in which to do it. Annoyingly, I do not do that, because I didn't realise that this was the place that I could do that until it was too late, and then it was just like, oh, I'm going to have to do that another time then, maybe. The gist is kind of break these glowy thingies to shift gravity, I suppose. Shift around, and you sort of shift your way through all of these in order to make it to the mirror, plain and simple. So yeah, one of the other things to point out about the world within is that if you are on a New Game Plus save file and you collect all of the special treasure chests, which I believe either have Zodiac items or they're called Zodiac chests or something of that ilk, they're to do with the Zodiac anyway, you are able to take on a special boss rush, enemy rush, and at the end of that is a more challenging version of a fight that we will be seeing throughout the world within, which will be quite fun, but obviously we need to get to that fight first. But I will point out that when I first sort of experienced 0.2, like, a lot of the updates to... I mean, obviously I've mentioned that the character models are a little bit plasticky, not quite fully there yet in terms of being what they should be and need to be, which ultimately I feel that they've succeeded with in actual Kingdom Hearts 3. But I was definitely very impressed with the quality of the worlds. Like, if there's one thing that hasn't really changed, it's that. And it really does, like, I mean, this particular area is just stunning. It looks great. And it, like, obviously the distance that you can see, there's a lot going on there. This is just me trying to get that go for a while, and then realising I can't. The reason you can't really succeed is because one, that thing's in the middle, so you can't really get along that, and then this path is just not long enough to pull that off. So I really did screw myself out of succeeding there, but it's okay. And I'm not quite sure what extra thing got added there, because it's definitely none of these. So, yeah, so Queen of the Rink is the challenge and objective that I was talking about. That's the one we will not be getting this time around. See, I'm not quite sure what the one that unlocked was, but it doesn't really matter. Because once we go through this, we have our first fight against Phantom Aqua.
Is this what it means to face your demons? Only your heart is hollow enough to be a demon's.
That's not true. My heart is strong. I'll prove it.
And so yes, we have to take down Phantom Aqua. As a fight, it has the potential to be quite challenging, but as long as you realise what Phantom Aqua does is that she sort of teleports in to go and attack you, and basically there are times when she stalks, and that's sort of your cue to go in and get a combo in. If she's full on attacking, then what you kind of want to do is just block and generally try and get some counter strikes in there.
Enough.
She does have some of these sort of bigger magic attacks, which can be quite challenging to avoid. But honestly, this particular version of the fight is not that bad at all. In total, we are going to have about 3 rounds with Phantom Aqua. This is the first round. We'll have another round shortly, and then we will have the final round at the end of this world. And yeah, it's the Phantom Aqua fight that you can get a more challenging variant of if you collect all the Zodiac things and go into that secret enemy rush.
Then, and now my own phantom. What could it all mean?
I have to say, Aqua asking what could it all mean is probably most people watching Kingdom Hearts stuff. Like, I know there's a lot of people who just sit and just go, I don't understand any of it, and they just get very, very, very confused. And this is a lovely endless stairway. I would say this is probably my least favourite of the mirrors, because it is just really confusing, and you're unlikely to... well, it's more difficult than I suppose is necessary in order to figure out the secret of the mirrors. Because otherwise it is effectively an endless staircase. You just sort of run up, check the mirror, 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 and it just keeps going and going and going and going and going like that. There is, however, a sort of a slight trick to it, I suppose. And I think what I was doing just here, you know, I was doing a little bit more than just standing around. I was just checking that I knew what I was doing, because there's a thing in here. So once you've gone through the mirror once, you are going to want to murder these guys, these water cores. And once they're dead, you can go through the mirror again, I believe. Yeah, so you've definitely got to go through that top mirror twice if you want to achieve anything. But once you've gone through it twice, then you can see the magic of that, and there's a high potion hidden there. So that's basically... annoyingly, it's not something that you can see at any point. But what is nice is that here you can see that there is a mirror being reflected, so you know that that's where you've kind of got to go back. That's your challenge, to figure out that that's behind you rather than having to keep going forward. But here we go with Phantom Aqua again. She's a little bit harder, has a little bit more health. Well, I think a tiny little bit more health. As you can see, I'm still playing really, really badly. But it's okay. I will point out that you will probably definitely struggle to achieve a shot lock on this fight, because Phantom Aqua really does just teleport around a little bit too much. I know that I was here just like, I'm going to try and do it, and clearly I did manage to get off a Prism Rain, but none of the attacks hit, so it was ultimately a complete waste of my time. So that was very much a case of, well, now I'm just going to have to fight this regularly. And, you know, just pray that I don't die, because I really don't want to, for obvious reasons. I will say that conceptually I do really like this idea of the Phantom Aqua fight, because obviously it goes very much into what Aqua's struggling with throughout this entire game, really, is she's struggling with her own emotions and her own darkness, because, you know, ultimately she's trapped here and there's seemingly no way out. And trying to sort of handle that, she ends up having to fight her physical manifestation of that, and from a kind of narrative perspective that's always quite fascinating. It's also always quite fascinating when you have that whole rival battle-esque idea. And this is definitely a case of murder all the enemies, which is always quite fun. So yeah, it is an idea that I do always find really fascinating, and also I do like the whole rival battle thing. I mean, obviously it's one of the reasons why I love Bayonetta so much, because the Bayonetta versus Jean fights are incredible. I can't necessarily say that the Walken fights in the Wonderful 101 are stellar, but that's only because they tend to be more sluggish than anything else in the game of the Wonderful 101. Which sucks, but there we go. And I think part of the reason why I like those rival fights is because generally when they pop up is in games where you do spend quite a lot of time fighting these huge hulking behemoths, and so having sort of that difference in scale for a boss fight is always a lot of fun. Because also it ups the speed of the battles, because when you're fighting big brutes they tend to be quite slow, obviously, so your fights tend to be sort of longer, a bit slower paced as you sort of whittle them down. Whereas when it's that rival-esque feeling, it's very much more frantic and involved. And that's just particularly fun and exciting. And I believe that we only have two... Yeah, we have 2 mirrors left, one of which is another fight room. But this is, I believe, a fight room which has got a sort of a mystery to it in a way. It's really not that mysterious. So it's just like, right, solve the problem. and the problem is there's too much light in this room, so we need to blow out the candles by hitting them, and that will cause our enemies to appear. I think it is technically possible to just go out of this and just finish the room immediately without going into this fight, but I definitely recommend doing the fight, because obviously the more enemies you can defeat, the just generally better off you're gonna be. Because more enemies defeated means more experience, which means higher levels, which means that you're not going to be screwed over nearly as much by anything that you're going to be facing. But I will say that facing down the Neo Shadows can be a little bit of a pain, because they can be, well, obviously they're a lot more aggressive than regular Shadows. But also, in this darkened room, they are definitely more difficult to see than normal, because the only real thing you have to go on is sort of their figures when you can see them, and the yellow glinting eyes. And also some of them, they do sometimes attack you from off screen, but the game is mostly fair in ensuring that you don't get entirely blindsided by everything. Mostly fair. But obviously I'm just making sure that I get in all of those Spellweaver finishes, because it just makes my life so much simpler. There are a surprising number of enemies in this fight. Like, I'm sitting here just going, we've been here for a while. I mean, obviously it's not been that long, but it definitely feels like it's been longer than it actually has been. And maybe that is in part because my brain is very much going along the lines of, I'm sitting here doing a commentary of 0.2, and I kind of want to continue playing Kingdom Hearts 3, and really I could just go do that. But then that would mean that I would delay this, and I don't really want to delay this because I want to sort of start the commentary of Kingdom Hearts 3 sooner rather than later, so that I can just continue enjoying it all and sort of get my thoughts down on everything that I've experienced in the game. Because it's one of the things that I've definitely noticed in all of the kind of other playthroughs that I've done over the years, is that whenever I have done like a recording session, finished the game like a long time ago, I mean even if it's a few weeks, the further away I get from having experienced those things, the more I end up sitting there going, and sort of losing exactly where I was in terms of what I wanted to say about things, what I wanted to achieve. And it's a bit sucky. But I suppose it's the curse of having a memory that doesn't necessarily always do what you want it to. In the sense of, I've got a pretty decent long-term memory, but my short-term memory is pretty dire. Like, it's pretty bad. I've said this many times. It's like, I go in, I did something like yesterday, I'm just like, what did I do again? But then I can easily tell you that, I'm now trying to think of an example of what would be a good thing of saying, this is from ages ago that I remember perfectly. And I'm now not remembering, which is hilariously ironic. Well, I suppose a good example would be, I remember way back when I was recording my first ever playthrough, which was Knight's Journey of Dreams, and I was young and didn't really know what I was doing, but I distinctly remembered that my grandparents were down from up north, and I was still doing a bit of recording, because obviously you spend some time with them and then other times you don't, and you just sort of do, you act normally. I don't know, it was like around Christmas time, and I was recording, and I'm pretty sure it was the electrical entertainment area, and I managed to record it, and then it failed, and then I had to record it multiple times, and it drove me potty. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So, like, I remember that, and I remember some of the awful things that happened to me when I was at school. Like, there was some pretty rubbish stuff that occurred, and this is slightly challenging to pull off, but there is thankfully a pretty decent there's a lot of breathing space to ensure that you get that thing lined up. But that is the secret of this particular area, and I mean, I will say it was... I'm surprised I didn't get it on my first run, but I suppose mostly on my first run I was just thinking, just keep moving forward. I think I was mostly just going after the silver gems because they're also linked to an objective, and I didn't really think about that thing. But that is something that you... it's an easy objective to get, so we'll just go for it. Some of the other quite easy objectives that you can just do is just sort of just spam magic, because there's a whole bunch of... well, there's 3 of kill X number of enemies with fire, Blizzaga, and... well, Faraga, Blizzaga, and Thundaga. So, as long as you just sort of keep using magic, you should verily... This is not the time for a bit of verily. You should very easily get those objectives. It's just a case of sort of fighting onwards. And there's that silver gem that I was looking for. They're a little bit hard to spot sometimes, because there's obviously a lot of gems in this general location. And one of the things you probably do want to do is just make sure that you have got everything that you need to before continuing, like I'm doing, because I'm just like, right, have I definitely got all of the stones? I hadn't, because I'm pretty sure that once you go down that cliff, it's very difficult, if not nigh on impossible, to get back up. So make sure that you've got the 2 silver gems in this location before you continue, otherwise you will regret it. And then, I mean, I do really like the puzzle element of traversing this area, because it really does sort of make you think about perspective and where things are. Because, I mean, the whole thing with this mirror is that there is a platform that is basically floating around here, and obviously you can only see it in the mirror, which is how you see sort of all the other things. And what you want to do is you want to get it in position so that you can pick up certain elements. So like there, I managed to do it so that it completely covered that gemstone, and that meant that I was able to pick it up and collect it. And then we need to do the same for a platform just over there. I will say that getting this one is a little bit challenging because kind of getting it so that the positioning is just so that you can jump that gap is challenging, because what you tend to forget is that this particular platform curves up and to the right a little bit more than you would perhaps expect. And so if you were not ready for it, then it's gonna end up screwing you over slightly. But I think pretty much, yeah. Oh, that might still not be close enough. It's a little bit of a nightmare. Oh no, that should be fine. We can make that jump with a double flight. Thankfully we didn't even need the joy of an air slide, but I thought we might do, but thankfully not. But with that, we've just got to put this in its correct position, and then we are pretty much done with the world within as soon as we've had our delightful final battle with Phantom Aqua. Yes, just don't miss that chest, because you're not going to be able to come back for that. So yeah, here we go. Time for the final Phantom Aqua battle. And really, this is going to be your best opportunity to get that Queen of the Rink objective complete. But that said, it is a challenge to do because Phantom Aqua teleports so much that you are going to struggle to build up your completion gauge. Well, your action gauge, I suppose, as it should be called. And even though she has a lot more health this time, you're still much more likely to have killed her before you are able to pull that off. But this is definitely your best opportunity in order to get that. Because obviously I have managed to get into Spellweaver, and I have now got a sort of limited time, I suppose, in order to get that command off. I'm not going to. I wish I could. What might have been the way forward would have been to hold off on launching into Spellweaver, because as you can see, I just ended up kind of not really getting a chance to attack before it ended up running out, which is infuriating, but these things happen. And I got into Spellweaver again. It's still not going to happen. I was really frustrated because I think when I actually did manage to get into this, like when I got it the first time round, it was great. But as you can see, I need to basically complete one more combo, and Phantom Aqua is going to die before then. I was just like, oh, for God's sake. Was very frustrated, but them's the breaks, unfortunately.
That's all of them.
But it's Phantom Aqua defeated.
Didn't have anything to say. But my shadow, she wanted to destroy me.
And with that done, we are we're completely done with the world within. Obviously, if you collected all of the Zodiac things, then you could go into one of the mirrors, I'm not quite sure which one it is, and take on the enemy rush if you had all of the Zodiac treasures, but we don't, and we're not going to. So we're just going to leave and continue on with 0.2.
Never would have thought I'd become my own worst enemy. I've talked to myself a lot since falling into these shadows. But with the Phantom, it's as though all my doubts have gained a voice of their own. She's the weakness in my heart. I know I'm alone here. Have the uncountable hours in the shadows whittled away the courage I never really had. I'm losing this fight. The darkness has found the cracks in my heart. Is this the last apparition before it takes me over?